Well, good morning, class. I hope that each of you are having a good start to the day. I apologize for the delay in canceling class this morning, or for the late notice on that. I left my house with all good intentions of getting to Williamsburg to have class this morning, and when I left the house, I discovered very quickly after getting onto Highway 192 here in London that the roads were much more dangerous than I had anticipated, and so I made the decision to cancel class. Apologize once again for the late notice on that. Hopefully all of you got that in a reasonable enough period of time where you didn't have to trek out to the class if you weren't already out there. But at any rate, I hope that all of you are doing well. Hope that on this very cold and snowy day, you're having a good day so far. I wanted to take a few moments to talk to you a little bit about the assignments that I posted and give you some background information. If you go and read the email that I sent you, or you log on to iLearn, you will see in the course announcements section that I have posted 3 case study assignments for you that are due by Thursday. All 3 of them are due absolutely by Thursday at 9:25, our next class meeting time. But the first of those assignments, which is on case 1-1, the sources of GAAP, of generally accepted accounting principles, that one, if you get that posted by midnight tonight, by 11:59 p.m. tonight, or by the end of the day, then I will award you 2 additional bonus points for that assignment. So that's a way to pick up a couple of extra points and to get at least one of those assignments in and out of your hair so you don't have to worry about it. To give you a little bit of background information on some things that you need to pay attention to specifically for these assignments, on the first one, which is again case 1-1, the sources of GAAP, here you're going to be asked several questions about the FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, ASC, the Accounting Standards Codification. That is the source of GAAP that we use now, as we have talked a little bit about in class, and we'll talk about much more in class in the future. In previous times, there were several sources of GAAP besides the FASB ASC, or before the FASB ASC. That's been a recent development that has taken all of these various sources of GAAP and assembled them together in a very usable or user-friendly and easily searchable format. And so it took all of the various sources of GAAP that we utilized previously and codified them into essentially a one-stop shop for generally accepted accounting principles. When we talk about the major goals of the FASB Accounting Standards Codification, one of the major goals behind the ASC development effort was to simplify the process of researching accounting standards. Instead of having to go to the various pronouncements from the Committee on Accounting Principles and the Accounting Principles Board, and the FASB's statements of financial accounting standards and so on and so forth, and then of course also pronouncements issued by the Emerging Issues Task Force, the EITF, which is an institution of the FASB that handles GAAP for emerging issues in business and in the accounting profession. Instead of having to go and to research all of those sources of GAAP individually, the ASC has codified all of those and simplified the process of getting to that information. There are several other goals discussed in the text, but that is one of the central goals behind the FASB ASC. How is the FASB ASC expected to improve the practice of accounting? Well, again, simplification of the research process, greater accessibility, greater transparency, and just overall greater simplicity in the standards making process. Instead of issuing SFASs in the way that they did previously, now the FASB issues accounting standards codification updates to the FASB ASC. And so again, it just simplifies the overall process of researching the applicable standards. What literature is now contained in the FASB ASC, I have referenced several of those sources. You will need to research in your textbook to identify all of those sources that are contained. There's a pretty good list if you go to your reading in Chapter 1, and so I advise you to consult with that, but you need to detail those. And then what should an accountant do if the guidance for a particular transaction or event is not specified within the FASB ASC? Again, a pretty good section of reading in your textbook that I want you to check out an answer to that question. Your second case study is case study 1-3, politicalization of accounting standards. There are several items of discussion on this front that you need to be aware of, but the central theme for the challenge of politicalization for accounting standard setters, namely the Financial Accounting Standards Board, is the fact that these individuals do not set accounting standards in a vacuum. The standards that they establish, the pronouncements that they issue affect businesses across a wide variety of industries and backgrounds. They affect accounting professionals in a number of different areas of the profession. They affect government and regulators. They affect the voting and the tax-paying public. And so there are a number of consequences and a number of affected individuals anytime that the FASB chooses to issue an update to the accounting standards or to the accounting standards codification. They don't operate in a vacuum. A particular example is given in your textbook of consequences for standards issuing. Specifically in the 1990s, the FASB issued a particular update to the accounting standards at the time dealing with the subject of stock option compensation. And at that particular point in time, a great many companies operating in the tech industry that were not yet making a whole lot of money, but they had a lot of promise to make money. They were growing and they were developing very quickly. But they didn't have a whole lot of profit that they were showing at that point on their financial statements. Well, what they were doing, as the textbook discusses, is they were compensating their executives in significant amounts through the use of stock options. But they were not reporting those stock options or expensing those stock options in the way that the FASB thought they should be on their financial statements. So the FASB came up with a preliminary standard, a preliminary update to the accounting standards that they exposed, and of course those companies expressed mightily, I don't think is even the right word, they expressed vehemently and vocally their opposition to that particular standard update. And so they identified correctly that if you want to change the standard or you want to influence the standard setting process, you influence the standard setters, and so that's what they set about to do. They did that by getting Congress involved. They actually went to the House and the Senate, pulled some strings there, and so there were a number of items brought to the floor of the U.S. Congress, basically trying to get the FASB to back down from issuing this particular standard. And one bill in particular that was perceived, and I think accurately so, to threaten the FASB's future was a proposal that the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the institution of the U.S. government, the agency of the U.S. government that is legally charged with development of accounting standards, as we've talked about or will talk about in class, the SEC has chosen to delegate the standard setting responsibility to the FASB, but ultimately the SEC has authority to do that. Well, this bill proposed that the SEC should have to hold a public hearing on every standards update that the FASB issues and review and vote on that standards update. If that were legally required of the SEC, that would essentially do away with the need for FASB. If the SEC has to hold a hearing and they have to review it and they have to do all of this work, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of what FASB and the delegation of accounting standard setting to FASB is there for. And so that proposal threatened the FASB's future, and as a result, the then chairman of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, Chairman Arthur Levitt, advised the FASB that they needed to back down, and they did. It is a very interesting example of the politicalization of accounting standard setting and the consequences that that can have both for businesses, for the accounting profession, and for the standard setters as an institution under their own. And so I want you to review that, and I want you to deal with questions on that front. Final case that I want you to take a look at is case 1-7, which deals with the FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board. And